James had waited for this day for a long time. He had always dreamed of visiting London. He read books about it. He watched movies about it. He saw pictures of the red buses and the big clock called Big Ben. Now the dream was real. He was really going to London. The airplane landed at Heathrow Airport in the morning. James looked out the window. The sky was a little cloudy, but the city below looked big and exciting. His heart beat fast. He felt happy, but also a little nervous. It was his first time in a new country. It was his first time traveling alone. At the airport, he followed the signs to get his luggage. He listened to the announcements. The voices sounded different. The English was fast, and the accent was new to him. He tried to understand, but it was hard. Still, he smiled and said to himself, "That's okay. I will learn. I will try." James got his suitcase and walked outside. He saw many black taxis waiting. A friendly driver said, "Need a ride?" James showed him the name of the hotel on his phone. The driver smiled and said, "All right, hop in. Let's go." The taxi moved through the streets of London. James looked outside the window the whole time. He saw red double-decker buses. He saw people walking with coffee in hand. He saw old buildings with stone walls and small windows. The cars drove on the left side of the road. Everything was new, but exciting. The driver spoke with a cheerful voice. "First time in London?" he asked. James nodded. "Yes. First time." The driver gave him a thumbs up and said, "You'll love it. London's full of surprises." After about 45 minutes, they arrived at a hotel next to the River Thames. The hotel had large glass windows and flowers near the entrance. James took a deep breath. He was here. He was really in London. Inside the hotel, the air smelled fresh. The floor was shiny. People at the front desk wore nice suits and smiled. James walked up to the front desk. A woman behind the counter said, "Hello, welcome. Do you have a reservation?" James answered slowly, "Yes, my name is James Carter." He was a little nervous, but he spoke clearly. She typed on her computer, then smiled. "Yes, Mr. Carter. Here's your key card. Your room is 207 on the third floor. The elevator is to your right." James smiled. "Thank you." He was proud. He had just spoken English with someone new. He felt more confident. He took the elevator to the third floor. The elevator made a soft ding sound when it stopped. The hallway was clean and quiet. He found room 207 and used his keycard. The door unlocked. Inside the room, everything looked peaceful. The bed had white pillows. There was a desk near the window. There were 2 chairs next to a small round table. Outside the window, James could see the river. The water moved slowly, and the sky looked calm. He sat on the bed and looked around. "I made it," he whispered. "I'm really here." He took a short shower and changed clothes. Even though he felt a little tired, he didn't want to waste time. He wanted to go outside and explore. James left the hotel and started walking. The air was cool. People walked quickly on the sidewalks. The sound of the city was full of life. He passed small shops and cafes. He saw a red mailbox on the corner. He smiled at everything. It was like walking in a dream. Later, he went into a small cafe. The woman behind the counter said, "What can I get you, love?" James looked at the menu and pointed. "1 tea, please." She smiled and prepared the tea. When she handed it to him, he said, "Thank you." It was a small moment, but it felt like a win. As he walked through the city, James tried to listen to people around him. He heard different accents. Some people spoke fast, others slow. He didn't understand everything, but that was okay. He was listening. He was learning. He walked past Big Ben. He took a photo. He stood near the Thames and watched the boats. He looked at the buildings and read the signs. Every moment helped him learn a little more. That evening, after a few hours of exploring, James returned to the hotel. He felt tired, but happy. It had been a good first day. A brave first day. Before going to sleep, James sat at the desk by the window. He opened a small notebook. He wrote down 3 things he did that day in English. I ordered tea. I asked for help. I listened to real people. He smiled at his notebook. This would be his new habit. Each night, he would write 3 English moments. He called it his daily English challenge journal. James turned off the light and lay down. He listened to the quiet sounds outside the window. The city was still alive, but softer now. As he closed his eyes, he thought, I am learning. I am doing this. I can speak English, and tomorrow I will learn even more. London was no longer just a dream. It was real, and James was ready for what came next. The next day in London was full of adventure. James woke up early. He had a quick breakfast at the hotel and took his camera with him. He was ready to explore more of the city. The sun was out, and the weather was nice. James walked to Big Ben again and took more photos. He visited Buckingham Palace. He stood outside the gates and watched the guards in red coats and black hats. It felt like a storybook. Later, James walked through a beautiful park. The trees were green, and there were people walking dogs and feeding birds. He smiled at a few people. Some smiled back. He felt happy and relaxed. He felt like he belonged here, even just a little. In the afternoon, James took a ride on the London Eye. From the top, he could see the whole city. The buildings looked small from above. The river moved like a silver ribbon through the streets. James took a deep breath. He felt lucky. This was a special day. But after all that walking, James was very tired. His legs hurt a little, and he couldn't wait to go back to the hotel and rest. He took the train back to his area, walked to the hotel, and entered the lobby. Everything looked calm and quiet. The soft music was playing, and the lights were warm. James smiled at the hotel staff and walked to the elevator. He pressed the button for the second floor. When the door opened, he stepped out and walked down the hallway. It was quiet. The carpet felt soft under his shoes. He looked for his room. There it was, 207. He remembered it well. He took out his keycard and swiped it. The green light blinked. The door opened. James walked inside. But as soon as he entered, something felt wrong. There was a suitcase by the bed. But it wasn't his. The color was different. It was blue, and James had a black suitcase. Then he looked at the chair. There were clothes on it, shirts, pants, and socks. But they were not his clothes. He looked near the door and saw shoes. They were not his either. James stood still. His heart started to beat faster. Something was not right. Did someone move my things? He thought. Then he heard a sound. The bathroom door opened. A man walked out with a towel around his waist. He looked at James. James looked at him. Both of them froze. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then the man asked, "Who are you? What are you doing in my room?" James felt so embarrassed. His face turned red. His mouth felt dry. He tried to speak, but it was hard. I. I'm sorry. I think I'm in the wrong room, James said. The man looked confused. "This is room 207, he said. James held up his key card. "Yes, my card says 207 too." The man walked closer and looked at the card. Then he smiled and pointed to something on the card that James hadn't seen before. "Look," the man said, "it says third floor. You're on the second floor." James looked again. He couldn't believe it. The card really did say third floor. But he had pressed the button for the second floor by mistake. "Oh no," James said. "I'm so sorry. I really didn't know." The man laughed. He didn't look angry. He seemed kind. "It's okay," he said. "Just make sure to check the floor next time." James nodded. "I will. Thank you. I'm very sorry again." Then James turned around and quickly left the room. His heart was still beating fast. He felt so embarrassed. His face felt hot, and he couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. He had walked into someone else's room. In the elevator, he pressed the button for the third floor this time. When he got out, he walked to room 207 again. He swiped his keycard. The door opened. This time, everything was how he left it. His suitcase was by the bed. His clothes were folded on the chair. The room was quiet and empty. James sat on the bed and covered his face with his hands. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. He laughed and laughed. It was so embarrassing, but it was also funny. He could not believe he had done that. He imagined the man telling the story to his friends. "A stranger just walked into my hotel room." James shook his head and smiled. Later, he opened his notebook to write in his daily English challenge journal. He wrote, "I walked into the wrong hotel room. I said, I think I'm in the wrong room. I learned to always check the floor before opening a door." He looked at his notebook and laughed again. James thought to himself, what if the man was angry? What if he called security? I was lucky he was nice. But he also realized something important. Mistakes happen. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and not to be afraid. Even when we feel embarrassed, we can grow, we can laugh, we can try again. James brushed his teeth and got into bed. The city outside was quiet now. The lights from the buildings reflected on the river. He looked out the window and smiled. "Yes," he said softly. "I made a mistake today, but I also made a memory. I will never forget this moment." Then he closed his eyes and fell asleep, dreaming of the next adventure in London. The morning after James walked into the wrong hotel room, he woke up feeling more rested. The sunlight came through the big window in his room. He sat on the bed and stretched his arms. He remembered everything that had happened the night before. At first, he felt a little embarrassed again, but then he smiled. He got ready for the day and went downstairs to have breakfast. The hotel lobby was quiet. Some people were checking out. Some were reading the newspaper. James walked to the small cafe inside the hotel and ordered a cup of coffee. While he waited for his drink, he heard a voice behind him. "Hey, room 207, right?" James turned around. It was the same man from the night before, the one whose room he had entered by mistake. James laughed. Yes, that's me, he said. Thanks for not stealing my towel. The man joked. James laughed again. Thanks for not calling security on me. They both smiled and said goodbye. It was a short moment, but it felt warm and kind. James felt better. He realized that even something embarrassing could turn into a memory. Sometimes it could even turn into a joke. After breakfast, James went outside. The city was busy, full of people and cars and buses. He walked slowly, thinking about his time in London so far. He thought about the places he had seen: Big Ben, the parks, the river. He also thought about the small moments: ordering tea, asking for help, saying thank you. He remembered how nervous he was on the first day. He had worried about speaking English. He was afraid he would say something wrong. But now, after a few days in London, something felt different. He was still learning, but he was not afraid anymore. James walked to a bookstore near the hotel. He wanted to buy a small book to take home as a memory. Inside the store, the air was quiet and smelled like paper. He looked around and found a book about London's history. He brought it to the counter. The woman at the counter smiled and said, "Did you find everything okay?" James nodded. Yes, this book looks very interesting. Are you visiting from another country? She asked. Yes, James said. I'm from the United States. This is my first time in London. Well, welcome. I hope you're enjoying your trip, she said. I am. I've already made one big mistake, but it was funny, James said, laughing. Good. That means you're really traveling, she replied. James liked that answer. It felt true. When you travel, things don't always go as planned. But that's how you learn. That's how you grow. After leaving the bookstore, James joined a free walking tour near the river. There were other travelers in the group from many different countries: Spain, Korea, Brazil, Germany. The tour guide spoke clearly and slowly. Everyone listened and asked questions in English. No one spoke perfectly, but everyone tried. James talked to a man from Brazil. They both smiled when they made small mistakes. They helped each other with words. They laughed a lot. James felt happy to practice English with someone else who was learning too. That evening, James walked along the Thames River again. The lights of the city were bright. The sound of the water and the voices of people walking nearby made him feel calm. He looked up at the London Eye, now lit with soft colors. He thought about how far he had come in just a few days. He was proud of himself. He didn't let fear stop him. He made a mistake, and instead of feeling bad, he turned it into something positive. That mistake taught him more than any textbook could. Back at the hotel, James sat down at the desk in his room. He opened his daily English challenge journal. He wanted to write about his feelings, not just the words he had learned. He wrote, I made a mistake and laughed about it. I had a real conversation with a stranger. I feel more confident today than I did on my first day. He closed the notebook and looked out the window. The city was full of life, and so was he. He whispered to himself, I can speak English. I am learning, and that's enough. Before going to bed, James looked in the mirror and said a few sentences out loud. He wanted to practice, but he also wanted to believe them. I am learning every day. It's okay to make mistakes. I am proud of myself. I will keep going. Saying these words made him feel strong. It was like giving himself a small gift. He didn't need to be perfect. He only needed to keep trying. As he turned off the lights and got into bed, James thought about his next trip. He didn't know where he would go, but he knew he would keep using English. He would keep practicing, keep talking, and keep smiling, even when he made mistakes. Because now he understood something very important. Mistakes are not something to fear. Mistakes are a part of learning. Mistakes are how we grow. And sometimes, mistakes are the best part of the story. James fell asleep with a smile on his face, ready for the next day and ready for every new word he would learn. James's story in London is not just a travel story. It is a story about courage, learning, and growing. From the first moment at the airport to his last night in the hotel, James showed us something special, that even small steps can lead to big changes. At the beginning, James was nervous. He didn't know if he could speak English well. He was afraid to make mistakes. But he got on the plane anyway. He didn't let fear stop him. That is the first lesson we can learn. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just need to start. Every day in London, James tried something new. He ordered tea. He asked for help. He spoke to strangers. Sometimes he made mistakes. The biggest one was walking into the wrong hotel room. But instead of feeling bad, James learned to laugh. He learned that mistakes are normal. They are part of the journey. The best part of his story is not just what he saw or where he went. It's how he changed. James became more confident. He learned to trust himself. He became stronger just by trying. He learned English not from books, but from real life, from using it, hearing it, and living it. So, what is the deep lesson from this story? The lesson is confidence doesn't come from being perfect. Confidence comes from trying, learning, and not giving up. You can use this lesson in your life today. Maybe you are learning English, just like James. Maybe you feel shy when speaking. That's okay. Take small steps. Practice every day. Talk to people. Even if your grammar is not perfect, ask questions. Make small mistakes. Then learn from them. Each mistake is a step forward. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Your learning journey is beautiful. You are doing something hard, but you are still here, still listening, still improving. That is something to be proud of. Now, let's take a moment to celebrate you. If you listen to the whole story, congratulations. You practiced your English listening, reading, and speaking skills in a fun and meaningful way. You followed a real story, felt emotions, and learned many useful phrases. Before we go, here's a quick question to see how well you remember James's story. Question: what floor was James supposed to go to when he entered the hotel? A. Second floor. B. Third floor. Write your answer in the comments section below. A or B. Let's see who gets it right. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue making more helpful and inspiring content for English learners like you. A simple click makes a big difference. Also, if you want to donate to help us create more stories and lessons, we would really appreciate it. In the beginning, it's not easy to make high-quality content. Your donation, big or small, helps us keep going. Thank you for being part of this journey. Keep learning, keep smiling, and remember, your voice matters, your story matters, and you are doing great. See you in the next story.